urgent. A real catastrophe in Russia. A plane with almost 50 people on board has crashed. The details of the air disaster are shocking. The 50-year-old aircraft may have simply failed. This is not the first time something like this has happened. A barrage of failures in Russia. In Moscow, the car of the head of a Shahed drone manufacturing plant was destroyed. Tensions are rising. More on this coming up. Watch until the end. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Darina Kutsakalo, and here are the latest events. In Russia, an N-24 passenger plane with 48 people on board has crashed. The aircraft, which was en route from Khabarovsk to Tinda via Blagoveshchensk, disappeared from radar. Footage of it in the sky before the crash has been leaked online.
After the plane disappeared, the investigative committee opened a criminal case under the article concerning violation of aircraft operation rules resulting in death. More than 3 people.
The wreckage of the plane was found 16 kilometers from Tinda. The Ministry of Emergency Situations clarified that the rescue helicopter involved in the search for the N-24 discovered the burning fuselage of the plane. It is likely that no one survived.
Crew error during landing in poor visibility is being considered as one of the possible causes of the crash.
Among the possible causes of the air crash is also the poor condition of the aircraft. It became known that it was manufactured 50 years ago.
According to open sources, the plane with this tail number was produced on the 29th of January, 1976, which means it was 49 years and 6 months old. That same year, the aircraft made its first flight.
Russian social media channels immediately pointed out that this is already the second incident in 2 months, an accident involving aircraft from the Angara airline.
On May 26, at the airport in the city of Kirensk, Irkutsk region, the front landing gear broke during landing, causing the plane to roll off the runway. At that time, the aircraft was 51 years old.
Shortly before that, in Russia, a state-of-the-art drone fell right onto the heads of Russian citizens. The scandal is gaining momentum. Russian developments turned out to be raw and dangerous even for their own military. Another failure. The drone that was supposed to be the pride of the Kremlin has turned into a real embarrassment. On the outside, it looks almost like a plane, but in reality, it's just a heap of unfinished metal. Will its production be stopped after this loud fiasco? All the details are coming up in just a moment.
Altius, also known as Altair in Tatarstan, the electronic warfare system was activated. At least that's the version promoted by the Eurocivil Aviation plant, which is still tinkering with this so-called analog project. In the morning, Russians, frightened by Ukrainian drones, watched a white plane flying in the sky. Most likely, it was a Cessna aircraft conducting visual surveillance. Later, the heavy drone itself took off. However, almost immediately, it landed on a house in a garden community.
And after that, 2 more flew by. That's it. There was an insignia, I think it was written in Russian. They were cutting, asking, interrogating this area. About probably 5 meters.
The Dacha cooperative Dubki, where the incident occurred, is located not just near Kazan, but in Yesady. This is the descent trajectory of the aircraft during its approach to land on the runway of the aviation enterprise. The Kazan aviation plant named after Gorbunov. It is here that the Tuesday 160 and Tuesday 22M are assembled and modernized.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
In addition, tests of the strike drone took place just 1 kilometer from the military airfield in Bersoglip, where the Russians relocated their strategic aviation after the attacks. In comments to the Russian publication Business Online, the Ural Civil Aviation Plant, which is located in Yekaterinburg and, let me remind you, is working on the Altius project, gave its own version of what happened.
Today, the Altius unmanned aircraft, which was produced by the Enterprise, was indeed completing a test flight, and its takeoff from the base airfield went according to plan. Then, during the flight, satellite navigation was disrupted by an unidentified external electronic warfare device. The drone continued its flight using the inertial navigation system. For landing, it was necessary to send the aircraft for a second approach. The landing was carried out in inertial mode, and an abnormal situation occurred.
The emergency incident in Tatarstan demonstrated that Russia has not abandoned its long-term project. The creation of a reconnaissance strike drone analogous to the Global Hawk. Moscow began the project for a heavy UAV with long flight endurance back in 2011. At that time, the Sokol Design Bureau won a 1 billion ruble contract from the Ministry of Defense. Within 2 years, the designers presented the first model of the drone. And 2 years later, in 2015, it briefly took off from the ground for the first time. The delivery of 2 systems was postponed to 2018, but this never happened. Instead, the general director of the Sokol Design Bureau, Alexander Homzin, was sent to a detention center. He was accused of fraud and misappropriation of budget funds. That same year, the Altair project was transferred to the Kazan branch of the Ural Civil Aviation Plant. How the UAV was finished there is unknown, but 2 years later, the Ministry of Defense made a pompous announcement about a flight lasting 32 minutes at an altitude of up to 800 kilometers in fully automatic mode. And so at the end of 2021, the agency announced the successful completion of the tests.
The issues with the longer-range unmanned aerial vehicle Altius have been resolved.
Moreover, propagandists claimed that the so-called analogous development received its own Russian engine to replace the German one, the supply of which was halted due to sanctions.
The Klimov Design Bureau developed its own VK 800-volt engine, which was suitable not only for the Altius, but also for an entire line of light Russian helicopters that suffered from the same problem as the drone. With the same takeoff power of 800 horsepower as the German engine, our design turned out to be dry, meaning simpler and more reliable in terms of oil lubrication. And even more technologically advanced, thanks to the use of hot isostatic pressing. Therefore, the last weak point of our Altius remained.
At that time, by the end of 2022, the designers committed to deliver 18 Russified Altius engines to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Later, they expected another 50 or so, but for now, as can be seen in operation, only the residents of Tatarstan have observed it. By the way, according to journalists from the publication Business Online, on the 30th of June, a Russian court sentenced Alexander Homzin, the founder of the first heavy drone model, to 8 years in a penal colony. But due to the statute of limitations on the case, he will not serve the sentence. Not a single day in captivity. And here's another interesting fact in this story. The Simonov Design Bureau, which he headed and which was declared bankrupt at the beginning of last month, will also resume its operations.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, the cut of the head of a factory producing drones for the Russian army was destroyed. This was reported by RBC Ukraine, citing its own sources in intelligence.
On the night of the 20th of July to 21 in Moscow, at 1 Vereskova Street, unknown individuals set fire to a Mercedes-Benz belonging to Vladimir Anatolievich Petrov, the head of LLC Petro Engineering.
Will Russia continue to use 50-year-old airplanes to transport passengers after a series of tragedies? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button under the video, and stay up to date with the main news. There are more than 440,000 of us subscribed. More to come. See you soon!